Like, are you sure you want to do this? And then I picked up the phone and spoke to the person in charge and said, the last person I would ever want to disappoint would be Miss Winfrey. We are good to go.
Welcome to the Energy Upgrade Podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Grutman. And if you are a high-achieving woman, a successful entrepreneur, an inspiring entrepreneur, or just a woman with kick-ass big dreams, you're in the right place. If you value your energy, your health, if you want to be a biohacker, tap into longevity, if you want to raise the impact you have in this lifetime, you're going to have a lot of fun around here. As a second-time seven-figure business creator, certified health practitioner, and soul biohacker, I'm here to reconnect you to your energy, to the soul of your business, and to your superpowers. Let's go. Welcome home.
Hey, I'm so excited to have a conversation with the beautiful Jennifer Brodeur. We had the pleasure of knowing each other in my first business and in our first enterprise through Project Skin, and that was amazing. Jennifer, you are a pillar in the skin health industry. You have been in that industry for more than 25 years. You're a skin strategist, a teacher, an author, and also like a really good businesswoman and an entrepreneur. You're the founder of JB Skin Savvi, which is an incredible skincare line that we're going to talk about. But really my intention for having you today was for us to reconnect. So it was a little bit selfish, but also just for women to get to know the incredible, incredible women that you are. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
And I didn't even mention, but you know, this is usually the tagline that goes with your name. You've been Oprah's esthetician as well as Michelle Obama's esthetician, and you are a celebrity as like esthetician. You've been doing incredible treatments, and you really understand skin in a whole different way. And so for people that are joining us, like, just tell us about what you've been up to lately, because I know you've had a bit of a pivot. So tell us.
Yeah. Well, it's actually interesting. I always joke and tell the younger estheticians that I was the facialist of the stars before social media.
Yes.
Because back in our day, there was no social media, so you couldn't even piggyback off of that. And a lot of the work I do is so much behind the scenes. So it was all like, it wasn't even talked about, right? So you'll see a beautiful picture of a woman and you'll talk about her hair, talk about her makeup, about her stylist and her clothes. And most of my work goes not unnoticed, because I know it's me. So for example, you know, Mrs. Obama looked amazing during just recently, and you know, she uses our skincare and I still take care of her 10 years on. So it's always nice to see my work up on the big screen, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
However, as with everybody, you know, businesses change. That's what's beautiful about being an entrepreneur. You know, over time you rethink things like, is this the right step? I think all the steps I've taken up until this moment were right, because I don't really believe in looking behind and saying, oh my gosh, what a mistake, I shouldn't have done that. But so long story short, you know, when we launched JB Skin Savvi in 2016, the dream was always to have a flagship store. You know, back then we were talking about New York. Big difference for Knowlton, but yeah. I think what really changed a lot of things for me really was COVID. And it wasn't that COVID was a bad time for me, but prior to COVID, I was traveling the world. I was always in my suitcase. And I have to be honest with all of the wonderful women that listen to your podcast, it got really lonely. It wasn't as glamorous as people think. You know, you're seeing beautiful things, you're alone. So I joke around and say, Jen, did you see that? Wow. You know, it just got to, you know, all the airports are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
All hotels are pretty much the same. So during COVID, I stopped traveling, and then I had a lot of time with myself, you know, got back on the treadmill, got back into the pool, started checking myself in regards to being more accountable for like a better health, you know, a healthier lifestyle. And then I thought to myself, well, what next? And we had planned to move to the townships. That was always in the works, but it was always later, you know, when we get older. And I thought, I think I'm old enough. I think it's time. So on, you know, one day in July 11th, like back in, I think 2020, I'm bad with my years now with COVID and stuff. But yeah, that was the moment. It was like I woke up that morning and I looked at my husband. I said, "That's it. We're doing it. We're selling everything and we're leaving."
We're
So that
leaving
was
the city.
it was a big pivot for us. It was huge because our offices were in the city. We had warehousing on the South Shore of Montreal, and then we also had our home. So it was it's sort of like you, right? It's this big aha moment of, oh, like what next? And we really did it in a very selfish way, in the sense of like we were thinking of ourselves. We were thinking of what's sustainable for us. And then for our kids as well. My girls are grown, but we wanted a place where, eventually the grandkids would come to.
So talk to us about the skincare line that you have, because it was, you know, I think at the center of maybe also you wanting to be closer to nature and having these massive gardens of peonies, because that is your flower. So
Yes.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What is the
Well,
foundation of or your vision around this skincare line that you have?
well, it was really interesting. So I've always been formulating and dabbling with stuff, right? So I'm an official cosmetic chemist and certified, and I have a bachelor's in teaching. And I'm like you, well, I'm always learning something different, and I thought to myself, so back in 2010, when we were creating products, it was really on a very small scale. So it was like for my VIP clients specifically. So all of my well-known clients around the world were getting some of that. And then fast forward to 2015, I started to dabble with the peony root because at first I wanted to work with the broccoli. That's a true story, but it's not a very sexy vegetable. So it's like kind of hard to sell broccoli cream, right? Or like, I don't know, kale facials and that kind of thing. I was like, okay, that's not going to work. And so what I love about the peony is that it's the king and queen of flowers. It could be gender neutral and it is so robust. So if your earth is well curated and taken care of, your peony plant can live up to 100 years. And I thought that's fascinating. And so I started to deep dive, and I also teach oncology aesthetics. And so with oncology aesthetics, we talk a lot about the inflammatory process, as we do with all autoimmune diseases and life in general.
Yeah.
And the peony root is an anti-inflammatory. And I thought, oh, what a great way to launch a skincare line. Let's start from the basics. Let's start from within. Let's start with lowering inflammation. And that was kind of the idea for the first inaugural line, to be with like the peony root. And my first clients to use the product were in fact Miss Winfrey and Michelle Obama. So they were the first two to try. And then, they loved it. And then in September of 2016, I was away on business with Miss Winfrey, and she was kind of like, yep. And then they told me like your products are going to be in favorite things. Now, mind you, we weren't prepared for that. It was one of those moments. And we were really tried 3 times about this because she wanted it. We got the call. We sent the first set of products. They didn't like how they showed up. Charles, my husband, drove to New York, delivered a second set of products, and they still said it wasn't right. And so 3 times we were tested. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And then I picked up the phone and spoke to the person in charge and said, the last person I would ever want to disappoint would be Miss Winfrey. We are good to go. So it just goes to show you that a lot of things that we do in life, like we get tested and we have a choice. Like you move forward, you walk through the pain, because growth has to hurt. I'm sorry to say.
Oh, for
Right?
sure.
So we could have just stayed and been local, because at first the line was going to be local. And then we went from local to having my face all over New York on the big jumbo screens. It was bananas, but what an amazing ride that was, honestly.
Oh, and I remember knowing you from, so we knew each other because you also put together a device called Max, which is
Yes.
basically LED light therapy, which
Yes.
at the time when we started talking about that, it was so novel and nobody was really hearing about this. And I remember how you were sharing stories of how you were healing amazing,
Yeah.
like crazy skin conditions like
Yeah.
rosacea and acne and
Yeah.
hyperpigmentation using this light.
Yeah.
I remember, you were talking about how the quality of your LED bulbs was like NASA grade. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. So that's how we got to work together, because we brought Max into the clinics.
And you were very ahead of your time, because when we launched Max, it was in 2003. And even then, everybody thought I was nuts. Can you imagine? And then fast forward to when we met, you saw, and you were like, no, we need to integrate this, because I loved your philosophy of healing skin and working with the skin and not against the skin, which is what I'm all about. And so, yeah, it was wonderful that you were like ahead of your time. And now
it's like we're on to something else, like we're next level. But okay, so I remember seeing that in live, like seeing you go from having this like tiny skincare line and then making it to Oprah's favorite things. And was it not right before Christmas?
Yeah, it was like November 3rd, 2016, to be precise.
And I remember what happened after. It was like there was a before Oprah's favorite thing and an after.
Yeah.
It basically gave you all this credibility. I mean, it is a dream come true for every entrepreneur, but like you say, it also means like you're not only just 10xing, I'm sure it was like 100x in terms of your production and your marketing and everything.
Well, that's the thing, right? So when you're selling a service, it's one thing, but when you're selling a product, then everything is like you've got to get more and more and more. And then I feel like also, for whatever reason, and this is true, this is the most honest I can be about this, is that for me it was such a big gamble, because I know her. And I didn't want to let her down. So it was like, it was so many layers. It wasn't just like the business, will people like it? What's the feedback going to be? But like, is she going to be proud? And then it's this whole thing, right? And then I think that through that experience, what I learned, and her best advice was, don't dim your lights for anybody. Stay in your light. And if you think I'm annoying and you think I'm too loud, turn off the TV or don't follow me on social media. I don't know what to tell you. But that was very disturbing to me, because when we started doing all the TV shows and we were doing all the articles, I would tell people, I would say, in my industry, for a brand from Montreal, it is like an Oscar. Like, it's bananas. And then, when we got our feature in Vogue, that's like another Oscar. But I was getting this rumbling noise, right? I always call it the noise. It's this noise of and it was getting louder and louder. And I was like, enough. Like, I don't care. It just don't follow me. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not. And I think there's a big difference with being proud for a product that you've developed and created, and wanting to educate people, and bragging. I think there's a clear difference between the two. So I thought that was really interesting. So I felt like rapidly there was this other pressure of people. Yeah, this shadow of, which is normal, of people being like, oh, so when is this all gonna collapse? Like, when is she gonna lose it all?
And here you are, 2024, and now you have your flagship store, and you have done everything but collapsing, and you are growing, like infinite rows of peonies in your backyard. How amazing is that?
It's the best life, honestly, because I feel like nature teaches us so much. I think that's the takeaway, because I always tell people that a business is like a season, and a lot of folks, they'll be like, yeah, whatever, but it's true. But if you don't prepare yourself for the next season, oublie, like, you're not going to get the harvest that you were hoping for. And I think a lot of people like, oh, well, this is my quiet season. Okay, well, during your quiet season, what can you be working on? Like, what could you be doing? Because you're always got to be. And that's what nature does. So like with the peonies, like, you plant peonies in the fall. So in the fall, we're going to cut down what we had. We're going to make sure the soil is ready. We're going to test the pH. Do we need to add anything? And then once we get our peonies brought in, the roots, you got to prepare the soil. Like, do you know what I mean? And then all that hard work, we're going to see it not next year, because with peonies, it takes 2 to 3 years to bloom. So whatever we do this fall, we're going to see in 2 years, but we're not just going to sit there for 2 years, right? We're going to keep preparing for the future. So I think that nature is amazing. And what nature also teaches us is that you control nothing to an extent. To be honest.
Nothing, nada, zero. Absolutely. So true. Oh, I love, there's something you said about the shadow that comes with rapid success and rising rapidly. And I want to talk about this. You and I were chatting about that just before hitting record. You know, we both live in Quebec, which is probably the most, I don't even know how to describe it. It's one of those provinces where we've been raised to think you got to be a good girl and you got to keep it small and you got to keep it to yourself, and you can't be talking about successes because otherwise you'll be bragging. And you know, stay small, stay small. It's always been basically what we've grown
Like
up
stay
with.
small, stay in your space, don't talk
Stay
too loud.
quiet. Yes, like be
Dérange pas, là.
happy, put a smile on your face, look nice, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
But
you
you
know,
can't look too nice though.
yes, oh true. Yes, like try to just be average on
Yeah.
everything. That
Yeah.
is basically the message we grew up with.
Yeah.
And now here you are Oprah's esthetician, and like, how the heck, like, people can't even compute this here. And so of course it
No.
comes with a great deal of jealousy and, you know, so many unnecessary, you know, bad feelings, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because even now, like I'll still get people saying, is it even true? Or, and at the end of the day, I don't even answer to that anymore. And then people ask me why you, and then my answer is always because I'm the best at what I do. That's it, that's all. Like I don't even go further now because there's no, it's a very complex relationship in the sense of like when you're taking care of somebody's skin and you're developing skin strategies, there has to be a relationship there. It's not just, and I think that that's also what I'm trying to demystify within Quebec and Canada, where a facial is not a one time a year thing. A facial should be done like every 6 to 8 weeks, if not every month. And it's this whole well-being, right? It's, the whole ritual of cleansing your skin at night should be a moment for yourself. And it shouldn't be just like, so it's a lot of work. I'm not complaining about it, but yeah, there's a lot of, there still needs to be,
Education.
yeah, about it, of the why and why would you do that? And I think that there's also this idea that when you take care of yourself, it's because you're selfish, or if you're, taking time for yourself, oh my goodness, like that's not good. So there's still a lot of work. I think that there's been progress though, honestly. I think it's not as bad as it used to be, but I still feel like for a lot of people, it's like only, who would buy that kind of a treatment or pay that much for a facial or pay that much for a cream. It's not seen as well-being, taking care of myself. It's still seen as I'm so selfish, I'm gonna buy myself all this stuff.
I know. Oh gosh, we have so much
Yeah.
work to do, but I'm grateful
Yeah.
you are doing it. And so you touch on many things. I do want to go back to the facial piece and the ritual,
Yeah.
because I do feel like it's very rare that people are actually having a facial done every 6 to 8 weeks. So let's talk about that. And what should we look for?
Well, I think that for a lot of women in general, there's different things. So a lot of people will just assume that they need to anti-age, but you can't anti-age. Like if
Yeah.
you don't, if you're
You're
not
stuck.
aging, you're dead. So we're all aging, right? First of all. So I think I think it's a lot more complex than just saying it's the whole acceptance, right? So if you're coming in on a regular basis and you're getting your skin professionally cleansed, professionally, whatever it is you're having done, there's this intimate relationship that develops between you and your esthetician or your facialist. And they're going to be on top of it. They're going to be checking for any abnormalities, how your skin is doing. There might be changes. There'll be a conversation, maybe even about the shampoo that you use. And is your water hard at home? Do you have a well? Do you not have a well? Like All these things will have a direct correlation to the quality of your skin, because whatever you're putting on your head is going all over, right? So some people might not be like rinsing their shampoo correctly. Some women are getting a lot of issues with various forms of dermatitis caused by their toothpaste, the fluoride in the toothpaste. So there's all these wonderful conversations that will not happen on TikTok, and they will not happen at Sephora. Nothing against Sephora, guys, but it's not going to happen there. And this idea of getting a facial once is like, you're not going to get to the bottom of it. So it really so back in the day when I had a skincare clinic, I used to tell people, if you want a one-off facial, there's a lot of places you can go, enjoy, have fun. If you want to understand your skin and have a skin strategy and have someone be like your skin coach, I'm your gal. But if not, like, you know what I mean? And it's not because I couldn't do something in one facial, but it's a long-term relationship. We're looking at your food, we're looking at supplements. And then sometimes it's referring them to the right person for food and supplements, or referring them to the right person for exercise, or, and then there are times where I would say to somebody, I think your problem is a lot more complex than just your skin, and your skin is just telling me something. So you should consult. And then they might be consulting at a dermatological level. They might be consulting on a psychological level as well. So it's this wonderful relationship that you build with people, and it's not overnight. But so I think that the biggest mistake in our industry, and I know I get a lot of hate for this, is like, too many women go for a facial and they say what they want. So they'll be like, I want a hydrating facial. No, you're getting nothing. We're going to start by looking at your skin. We're going to have you fill out all the questionnaires. I'm going to ask you a gazillion questions. A lot of them will be super impersonal. Like, what time do you eat at? What is your meal composed of? Like, what time do you go to bed at after you eat? How much water do you drink in the morning? Not just before you go to bed, but like, it's all these questions. And then we'll develop a strategy for you. And then, so a client coming in saying, oh no, I just want a purifying, that doesn't exist, because your skin is never the same. Every second, everything's changing, right? From where you're standing to what you're eating, to what you're feeling, what you're living. So the facial needs to be bespoke. It needs to be tailored and custom to your needs. So I think that's the biggest. So women will go in and go, oh, I'm going to ask for the hydrating facial. And then you go in and it's like, un, deux, trois, or, right? Whereas it shouldn't be like that, in my opinion. It should be like, let's look at your skin, and you might have something going on different here and here. So the skin type and the skin condition needs to be taken into account. And then I like to say to women, wherever you're going, you want them to create a skin strategy for you. So you want to be able to say, listen, I would like to get, I don't know, a V-beam, or I would like to get this procedure done. Let's get your skin ready for that, so that your skin takes it better. Somebody who wants to get Botox or injections, fine. Well, let's get your skin ready for that. Whereas a lot of people don't want to do the prep. They just want the thing. But the thing, but it's not enough. It's like, I always say it's like having this beautiful painting. If the canvas is dirty, the end result won't be as great, So it's like, let's prepare, let's get you in a healthy mindset. Like, and that includes all the things with skin, right? So it goes from sleep to water, all your nutrients, what kind of water are you drinking? If you're using collagen, why? Which collagen are you drinking? Like, there's so many things we have to deep dive into. Like, we could do a class just on all of that, right? So I think that that's the whole point. It's not just getting a facial. It's having a relationship with your facialist who will help guide you. And as a facialist, if there's one thing I can say, if there's any facialists listening to us, never, 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 never criticize what another person has done in the past. It is what it is. All products are great. It just might not be the right product for you. So this whole idea of like, all products are bad except for mine, that's false. So as a facialist, we need to be more flexible. So if a client comes in and says, I love this brand, okay, how can we work with that brand? Back in the day, I had clients who worked at Chanel. I had clients who worked at L'Oreal. They loved Kiehl's. I had people using La Mer, and I adapted. I was like, I get it. You work there.
Yeah. We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work.
Yeah.
I love everything you're saying, because, sometimes we tend to forget that our skin is our largest organ. And as you said, it is speaking to us all the time. It is also our primary detoxification organ. So you know, if we are breaking out or if we're having rosacea, like clearly the skin is trying to communicate something that's happening in the inside. And I always appreciated that you had this like root cause approach. Like, let's just try to go one step deeper. And no, you're not going to get this kind of conversation at Sephora. You just won't, or shoppers, you know, it's just not, and it's okay. You know, there's a time and a
Yeah,
place
yeah,
for
yeah.
these conversations, but if you're
Yeah,
the kind of person and you're like, I don't want to anti-age, but I want to age with the healthiest skin I can have, because I know that the outside that we can see with my eye is a reflection of what is happening on the inside.
exactly.
To me, that's a longevity tactic, you know,
Yes,
because your
yes,
skin is definitely going to be telling what, like, people just by looking at your skin can gauge your age usually.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So if we just decided I'm going to take really good care of my body in general and my skin, then it goes hand in hand. Like
100%.
you can't be like a, let's say, a biohacker and not take care of your skin and like
No, no, and then and
like
no,
don't
and then the whole thing is like, and then what layer do you take that to? So you've got to be adapting, right? So if somebody says to me, well, I have a sauna at home, amazing. My mother's Finnish. I'm all for it. Okay, how do we integrate that, right? And then if somebody says, well, I'm a big swimmer, I swim all the time. Okay, where are you swimming? What's the water like? How often are you swimming? I'm a runner. How often do you run? Like all these questions, like if a facialist isn't asking you these questions, they're really important because depending on, so like, let's say you're going back, let's say you go to Costa Rica this year and you're gone, Vanessa, for a month. I was going to say a year,
oh, I kind of like that.
but let's say you're gone for a month. Well, we need to adjust, right? Because now you're in a different, and then you always want to think about like, what's the humidity where you're at? Because
Yeah.
if there's no humidity in the air, then but it affects all your cellular functions because theoretically, as winter comes, everything should slow down, right? So your vascular system slow down, the lymphatic system. Now, if you are very sedentary and your lymphatic system isn't moving, that's not helping your skin either.
No.
So like we really want to deep dive and talk about the cells, the Langerhans cell, the melanocyte, the keratinocyte, and then how those interact and what are the links to the rest. So you're right. It's all about biohacking, really, if you think about it in a way, right?
And what are like the must-have that you recommend to everybody? And like, let's take your skincare line, but like,
Mm.
what are the things that you're like, if you're not doing this, we're going to see a problem in a few years? Like,
I
I'm
would say
assuming
if
like
we were,
properly cleansing, for example.
yeah. I think properly cleansing is number one in the evening. I think sunscreen is another big one. Sunscreen is really invaluable. I think though you want to look at, you got to figure out whether you're going to go medical, like if you're going to go chemical or mineral, that's another question. Chemical for people with sensitive skin and or rosacea prone skin, chemical could be a trigger. So I think the first thing is to figure out what's good for your skin in regards to sunscreen, but you need to protect yourself.
Mhm.
I don't care what anybody says, like, but it could be with a big hat too, right?
Yep,
Because clothing is a much better protector than sunscreen. So
for
then it's
sure.
that question. And I think what everybody should be doing most definitely, apart from cleansing their skin, is being mindful of the space that they live in on a daily basis. So for example, if you're on the computer a lot, the light that's emitted from your computer, especially the people who got all those big screens, is a trigger for rosacea for a lot of women. So what happens is as you get to that premenopause, and the hormones fluctuate, the skin does get a lot thinner. And as that skin starts to change, you're much more susceptible to reactions. So you might have been doing the same thing your whole life, and all of a sudden everything you're using you think it's reacting. So the number one thing is less is more. So that's my number one, is like use less product, be
Yes.
very minimalistic, be very mindful of everything that you're using. And then the other thing, my number one tip for skin is sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep at night, and if you're not getting good deep sleep, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you're just going to age so much faster. And you could be putting on a $2 million cream on your skin and you're not going to get results, because in order for your body to do what it needs to do, you need deep sleep. as you're sleeping at night, that's when the body replenishes itself, rehydrates itself, and repairs itself. So if you're not sleeping, none of that's happening.
Yeah.
So
We call it a beauty rest for a reason, right?
exactly. So when I have people tell me, oh my God, my skin, the first thing I say is sleep. And then I would say for the fall, if we were to go in my skincare brand and say like what would be the one thing to get, it would be the peony oil, l'extrait,
Mm.
because it's full of omegas and it's got licorice root as well. So everybody needs omegas on their skin, like everybody, even oily skin. It's amazing on oily skin. You might use it a bit differently, but that would be my number one must have. And it's suitable for all skin types and all skin conditions. Everything else will then, all our other products, it really will depend. But I would say, and l'extrait, which is our oil, is really the heart of the line. It really is. It's like everything started with the oil. I wanted to create an oil that was like multi-use for everybody, male, female, and we really knocked it out of the ballpark with
Oh,
that one.
it's such a beautiful product. I remember using it, and I remember at the time even we were trying to get it into the clinic. It was so,
Yeah.
so beautiful. And it's interesting because there's still people that don't agree with using oil on the
Yeah.
skin, and I'm like, it feels so good, but how are you using it? Do you recommend it at night and like as a middle layer? Do you in the
Well, it depends on everybody for
Yeah.
sure. I use it twice a day, morning and night, because I'm just lipid dry. So I don't have much oil, and oil sits on water. So you need hydration and lipids. You need both. And so I have a special skin tricky thing that needs to happen. Now, for most people, what we'll often recommend is to use, so you cleanse your skin and then you would use the oil prior to your moisturizer. So, and for some women, the oil is more than enough. But if you're not using omegas and nourishing your skin this way, it's very hard for your skin, because what it helps keep that barrier, the microbiome, healthy. So
Mhm.
you need this combination. So this whole idea of like, double cleansing every day and over exfoliating, and what you're actually doing is you're creating a hole in your roof, so on an epidermal layer. And if you're using a lot of like big washcloths and they're really thick and rough, it creates micro tears. So just imagine you have a hole in your roof, you're going to call a roofer, and he's going to check it out and he's going to see if there's water damages, he's going to fix it, right? But us oftentimes in aesthetics, we're like, oh my God, there's a hole, let's throw a bomb in there, let's blow it up and see what happens, and hopefully everything will work out great, right?
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so the omegas are really, really good. And for some women who have oilier skin, what they'll notice over time is that the skin is less oily. So the reason your skin is getting oilier is because when you overstrip and over cleanse, the messaging that's given to the skin is the sebaceous gland, we got to produce more. The skin is lipid dry. So when you're giving it the right nourishment, it's like food. It's like the body, right? It's the same thing. Your skin cells are like a mini you. They need to eat, they need to breathe, they need to release their toxins, right? They need to do all their things.
Yes, I love what you're saying. It's like when people over fast, that's kind of what came to my mind, and they start gaining weight. And it's
Yeah,
because the body is like, well, you're not feeding me, so I'm going to start stashing this fat away in case, because you're throwing me in a famine. So it's the
yeah,
same thing with
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Um, and so you've touched on something that I'm shocked about this, but almost nobody talks about the microbiome on the skin. We hear about the
Everybody should.
microbiome. I know. So we talk about the microbiome, now it's kind of like almost common knowledge. We have a microbiome in our gut, and that's really what's producing 80% of our immune system. It's responsible for
Yeah,
our hormones,
yeah,
like our brain health, so much. But what most people don't know is we actually have a microbiome, on the skin
exactly.
also. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I like, Do you ever use any exfoliation methods? Like, what is your recommendation?
Very rarely,
Yes.
very rarely. I often tell women that if they're going to see their facialist on a regular basis, they shouldn't even exfoliate at home. That's kind of my philosophy. It's always been. And I often get people going, you're wackadoodle. But oftentimes people will just do one or two. So we do like workshops here where women will come and we do like a round table and everybody gets a mirror and we deep dive about skin and their needs, their issues and how they feel, and they fill out all the questions. And then I take the time to readjust everybody's skin routine, every single person at the table. So we only do 8 women at a time, because if not, like it wouldn't work. But
Yeah.
and a lot of them within a week will write to me and say, oh my goodness, like just that one. They bring all the products that they're using. And it's not about selling anything. It's like, okay, well, this is great. Use it on your heels, or this is great. You can, or you can keep using it on your face. It's just these subtle switches sometimes, and they're game changers. And when I tell them they're over exfoliating, okay, a skin cell, every part of the cell or every part of the skin has a different life expectancy. So this idea that every 30 days you get new skin, you're not a snake. Like you're not shedding, right? So in order for your skin to be able to detach itself, the skin cells through the desmosomes, and to fall off, you need to have a very, very healthy microbiome. Because if there's not enough water, your enzymes can't work. So do you see what and then if you think of the Hayflick limit, so every time, everybody genetically, our cells will reproduce a certain amount of times, and then there's genetics involved in that, and then lifestyle and all this stuff, right? But just think about that. So every time you do an ablative procedure or over exfoliating, you're accelerating that process. And you're causing inflammation, and no inflammation is good, guys. Like no inflammation is good. So this idea of it has to burn, it has to be red, that's not true. Because every time you get inflammation, your Langerhans cell is triggered. For a lot of women, that inflammation will cause post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So then you get this whole ricochet effect. So that's why I always say less is more. So don't over exfoliate. Go see your facialist. She'll take care of exfoliating. She might use a spatula or a scrubber. That's my fave personally. And then from there, we'll tell you what to do at home. And sometimes at home, you can do a double cleanse. And that's an amazing way to exfoliate in a very good way, because you'll have your lipids and different. So there's different ways to do it in a much healthier way, so that your skin's microbiome, this homeostasis, stays intact. And when your skin is in homeostasis, your flare-ups are almost gone, rosacea included, right? But we don't give the skin the opportunity to innately heal itself, because what do? Oh, this isn't working. Let's buy this. Oh, that's not working. Let's throw that at the face. And so we're throwing all these different things. And then I'll have women come, with 2 full bags, and they'll be like, I don't know what to use anymore. I'm like, well, first of all, expiry dates, a lot of the stuff needs to be thrown out, sadly. Do you know what I mean?
Let's start with basics.
Yeah. So in regards to exfoliation, walk away. Just don't do it.
So retinol?
Retinol, if used properly, yes.
Do you use it?
I don't use it. No. But if used properly and the skin can handle it, by all means.
Okay. But not like glycolic, salicylic, all of those, like, of course, benzoyl peroxide, all that. It's like a big no.
There's no need, unless you have a very specific skin condition that we want to address, but it should always be done in a time frame.
Yeah, very temporary. Yeah. Yeah.
And not if you're 15.
Oh gosh, yes.
Story.
The teenager acne that we see most of the time, it's candida or even parasites can do that. But it's fascinating. I remember you never were a big fan of, big laser procedures and the Fraxel.
But there's a time and a place. So if you're prepping someone's skin and they're getting LED treatments, let's say with Max and then they're getting their procedure done, and then they're going to keep coming post, there could be a need. I've had V-beam done to my skin like several times, and it was amazing. But to say it was non-invasive would be false, because my eyes closed.
Well, V-beam, for people listening, that's like all the jargon, but the V-beam is vascular laser. So it's going to
Yeah.
help with any
Yeah.
redness.
And
And
it
so
helps.
it
It's
will
great.
trigger
So
inflammation.
yeah, so we have a lot of dermatologists who would work with Max in combination with lasers. So I think that's a really bright way to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that to think that the laser is the be all and end all and the answer to everything is completely false. Lifestyle first. So sleep, lifestyle, drinking water, overall health. If you're overall healthy, your skin will be pretty good. The
Mm-hmm.
rest is adjustments.
Okay. So you wrote a book in French. It's called La peau et ses secrets. And it's fascinating because it's been translated in Chinese
Yeah.
and not in English. So
No.
I'm gonna have to say something. But for the French speaker listening, definitely be sure to grab that book because there's so many truth bombs in there, and you're really helping, basically doing what we're doing right now. But
Yeah.
is there anything else that's in that book that is maybe a skin secret that you think women should hear about that we haven't touched on?
I think we've pretty much touched on everything, but I think the biggest thing I do want to add, and I do talk a bit about it on my book in my book, I think that there's a false perception of marketing. So like if I create a product and I put a koala bear on it, you're just going to assume it's natural and you think it's safe. And that's a big misconception because uh a mushroom is natural, then you could eat a poisonous one and die. So I think that the biggest thing to think about is when you're choosing a product, you want to look at, first of all, what does the brand stand for? Are those values something I'm aligned with? Number one. Number two, not because my best friend loves it that I have to love it. So it's not about that. And then it's kind of like thinking of, well, what else? Like what certifications are there? What is it about? But this idea of like, because you can use a very natural brand and it have no preservatives and it could be horrendous for your skin because if you have those micro tears and you're applying that on your skin, that bacteria is going to proliferate. Bacteria loves humidity and water. So in a skincare product, you want some kind of preservative, conservative of some sorts. No, I don't care
Yes.
what anybody says, right? And especially if you're autoimmune compromised, if you're undergoing any cancer treatments, oh my word, like then you want the most, you know, stable product because you need it to be stable. You don't want it to change with any. So I think that in my book, that's the part that I was trying to convey. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll write another book where I'm going to be even more opinionated. I was often told like to bring it down a notch
Be a
with
good
my
girl,
comment.
Jennifer. Be a
Be a
good
good
girl.
girl, be quiet. Don't be too loud. Don't offend anybody. Another really interesting thing is when I talk about water, from an empirical perspective, so empirical meaning studies over the last 25 years of work, I could tell you that the minute a woman increases her water intake, depending on the water she drinks and how she drinks it, I see a huge difference with her skin. And that was something that was really poo-pooed in the book as well, because a lot of studies will say, well, it makes no difference like the water quantity. And there's studies, and they showed me the studies that say it's all false. And I was like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. But from an empirical perspective, I can tell you that the women who right away, from the moment they wake up, though, not at the end of the day, like
Oh,
from the minute you wake up, you drink that glass of water before anything else, and you move on and you keep drinking through your day, rest assured your skin will be different. Your metabolic functions will be different. You need that water. So that's something in the book that I tried to kind of explain, but I think it was brought down a bit. But that would be the one nugget.
so how could you argue with that? That's also what I recommend, to always start your day with a glass of water, because you are at your most toxic state when you wake up. And so if you don't flush that out, of course it's going to have an impact on your skin also.
Oh,
So
100%. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is when your skin is dehydrated from within and outside, your skin gets red. And then you get like that flakiness and it might be stinging and burning. And then and then you'll put a product on and you're like, I'm allergic to the product. No, no, honey child, you're not.
oh my gosh, I'm sensitive.
Yeah, true allergies, like true skin allergies to ingredients are very rare. What people often will get is an overusage of certain ingredients on a repetitive manner, and then the skin becomes highly sensitized. And that we'll see oftentimes with essential oils. But a true allergy that, you know, someone's gone to see a specialist and did the test and is able to say, I'm allergic to. So oftentimes the doctors will say, well, I think the cream you're using is probably bad for you. And they'll be like, okay. And they're like, you're just allergic, but that's it. Like it's,
Yes. Yes. Oh, I mean, there is so much education that needs to still happen. You know, all the things that we've talked about, the microbiome, the overexfoliation, just, you know, hydration. There's just so many gold nuggets in here. So thank you for
Thank you for having me.
sharing that. That's just incredible. And now I'm thinking, okay, we need to do a workshop. We need to do something. We need to, yes, we need to have this conversation in the flesh. It's so good. So
Well,
good.
when I see women and their eyes light up and they're like, oh my, like, aha, like it's just such a beautiful feeling to think that. And it's not about, you know, I think with everything, it's minimalistic, right?
Less is more.
It's like a minimalistic approach. It's minimalistic in all the senses in the right way. And then you have more money to get other things.
Yes. And, you know, isn't it interesting how this and economics and entrepreneurship should be what we teach in school? Like, I'm just looking at my 10-year-old
Oh, yeah.
daughter who's starting to have, you know, the odd little thing and she's just
Yeah.
freaking out. And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, this is a conversation they should have to understand how important it is to actually just honor their skin, honor the
Yeah.
great work it is doing on a
Yeah.
daily basis, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I have a client who comes here. She lives very close to here, and she brought her daughter who's 10. And I sat her down, and she's amazing, Flavie, and I explained to her, and she was taking notes. And but see, more 10-year-olds should have, or 15-year-olds. And I was so proud of her because like she didn't fall into the I need all of this. And
Yes.
it's that they're able to understand at 10. Like they're very smart.
Oh gosh. Yes, yes. And we tend to think they're still kids, but no.
No, yeah.
Yeah, they're evolving fast. So
Yeah.
if people want to get to know more about you or purchase your product, where can they find you?
Well, our website is the number one. It's the easier for depending on where people are located. And if they want to come meet us in life, like in real life,
If you're in Quebec,
if you're in Quebec, we are
Township,
in Knowlton. So it's considered Lake Brome. So we're one of the villages of Lake Brome. So in Knowlton, we are on Lakeside, so on the main street where everything happens. Knowlton is very famous for those who read you know, mystery novels by Louise Penny. So the whole
yes.
Three Pines books are done here, located in Knowlton. So it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So we are open 6 days a week. So if, you know, anyone's
Wow.
welcome. Yeah, anyone's welcome to pop on in and, you know, given if we have the time and you want skin advice or tips and tricks, we are more than happy. And if it's not me, my team is very well educated, so we can help anyone with any questions that they may have.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing. And of course, we'll put all your links in the show notes, your website, your Instagram, all the things. Thank you for this powerful conversation. Always such a joy and a pleasure to reconnect with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
The information shared on this podcast is for information purposes only and doesn't provide any medical advice. Vanessa Grutman does not cure, diagnose, or treat disease. Please consult your physician before trying any new protocol or product.